I did it for so long that started off as a let's go and party on a Friday or Saturday night. That turned into, all right, let's do Friday and Saturday and maybe Sunday too. It became normal to get high and drunk during the week. I'm in college trying to get to and from classes, but I have to stop to make sure that I have alcohol in my car for after
Yeah.
class. Or
Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Young and Sober. My name's Sydney and I'm your host. Today I'm talking with Evan.
Hi everybody, how you doing? My name's Evan.
He is someone that I met within the rooms of recovery, and he's really been a force to be reckoned with. I heard a little bit of his story a while back and how he got sober.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you invited me out. This is an awesome opportunity, and hopefully people don't just scroll by this and they take a minute to listen, especially people that have been struggling. Seeing young people in the rooms, maybe they'll stop and give it a listen, and maybe they'll hear something that'll help them out.
So a little bit of what I know about Evan, he is a husband and he's got 2 kids, a beautiful daughter and a son, and he sponsors a bunch of people and he's really just very involved in this community. So you want to go ahead and tell the viewers when your sobriety date is and a little bit about that story?
Yeah, so my sobriety date is April 22nd of 2018, but I actually was on a maintenance drug prior to that date. When I went to rehab, the doctors prescribed me what's called Suboxone. It's a maintenance drug that's like an opioid blocker. And then when I got out of that rehab, they transferred me to a doctor. So that prescription never stopped. So I was on this drug for 2 years in early recovery. So when I was coming up on my 2 years to get my 2 year medallion, my sponsor, who's still my sponsor to this day, he was like, no, you're not picking up your 2 years. You're picking up your one day. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? And he's like, it's time. You've been on this medication for almost 2 years. You don't need it anymore. I was taking it as prescribed the right way. Instead of picking up 2 years, I picked up one day.
And how did you feel in that moment? What was really the internal thoughts that you had?
I was angry at my sponsor for suggesting that at first, but he was right. So I talked to my doctor about it in early sobriety and just said, look, I want to get off of this. I think it's time. And he was like, I absolutely agree. So he like weaned me off the appropriate time and or the appropriate way. And when I picked up my day one, that's my date now, April 22nd of 2018. Coming up 8 years of complete sobriety, nothing. But, I felt cheated.
I can only imagine how you felt in that moment when your sponsor was like, oh no.
He's like, Evan, it's time. I was scared to take that leap, both feet in, all in. I knew what I wanted. And I'm really glad that I reset my time, having 7 years and change, almost 8 years.
Good for you for being honest.
Well, it feels better. That's time of no drugs, no alcohol, really sober. And so I'm really grateful for my sponsor for giving me the courage to do that. It was the best decision I think I ever made.
Do you want to go ahead and tell them a little bit about your background?
Sure. I come from a great household. I don't have a story where I grew up being abused, neglected. That's just not my story. My parents have been happily married for 45 years. I have a brother that's 10 years older than me. So when I was younger, I had this great, loving home. I had a brother to show me all the ropes. I was really athletic and into sports at a very young age. My drug and alcohol abuse didn't come until high school for me.
Yeah. And that's where, when I had heard your story, because I'm very similar, I didn't come from a destructive home. The addiction still took a massive toll on my life. How old were you when drugs started to kind of play a picture?
Marijuana was introduced to me, I think, 9th, 10th grade. First interaction with myself smoking marijuana was, I think, 9th grade with a bunch of friends and getting a bunch of food off the dollar menu and being like, wow, this is so much fun. But it was something that I kind of put up on a pedestal. It happened and I knew it was wrong, but we had a lot of fun. Yeah. So when I would have sleepovers with friends in 9th and 10th grade, we would smoke here and there, but it was real innocent. We were skateboarding and riding bikes. I feel like a lot of kids our age had that summertime.
Yeah, it's like the innocent introduction into something.
Oh, yeah. The one thing that I'll say about that is deep down, I knew I really liked how it made me feel.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. It was it was fun, an easier time talking to girls. I had an easier way to express myself. I was comfortable in my own skin. I wasn't introduced to anything harder than marijuana until I started doing alcohol. Mm-hmm. When I started drinking, I played sports. A lot of the people that I was hanging out with were older than me. So going to house parties and whatnot, there was always alcohol around. So you're peer pressured into drinking to fit in, especially when you're younger. So anyways, house parties in high school. But again, I never ran with it. It was just one of those things. I was an innocent kid. I did good in school, came from a good home, and I was just introduced into that partying world in high school. But that's not really where my addiction took a downfall.
So where did your addiction take a downfall then?
Sydney, thank you for asking. It was a girl. Senior year in high school, I met a woman and essentially just followed her around like a puppy. The first time I ever saw her, she walked into the gymnasium and she was wearing an all pink
Yeah.
like zip suit,
Yeah.
the pants, the jacket. She was all in pink. And I remember sitting with my buddy and looking at her, and without even ever knowing her name, I just told him, I said, I'm gonna date that girl. Like I had already made my mind up. And come to find out, that relationship was ultimately my demise. It started off fantastic, but like many young high school relationships, it became very codependent and we co-signed each other's BS for a very long time.
Did your addiction, was it just alcohol or did eventually it start to lead into other things?
It led into many things. Alcohol and marijuana were always a constant with me through my late teens and early 20s, but it very quickly became into pills. It became pretty much anything that was mind altering that would take me out of myself. I became infatuated with. Cocaine was introduced to me, pills were introduced to me. And I didn't have that ability at this point. Dating her, she was into that kind of thing. And I didn't have the ability to say, no, guys, I'm uncomfortable with this. It was almost like the peer pressure rolled into me being dependent on the drug.
Yeah.
I did it for so long that it started off as a let's go and party on a Friday or Saturday night. That turned into, all right, let's do Friday and Saturday and maybe Sunday too. It became normal to get high and drunk during the week. I'm in college trying to get to and from classes, but I have to stop to make sure that I have alcohol in my car for after
Yeah.
class. And one thing that I want to say too is like now in today where we are, I feel like the younger generations, sobriety is becoming cool.
Yeah.
I
It's
love
definitely
that.
like the stats are insane on how many people are just completely sober now. Like don't even want to
100%.
touch alcohol.
Fast forwarding a little bit, I started using illicit substances pretty regularly and I needed to fund those habits. So I had a few jobs. I was a busboy for a little while. I worked at Home Depot's paint department and it got to the point where my grades were dropping and my drug use started to take my number one priority. I was borrowing money from family members. I was doing anything that I could to support my habit. And very quickly, it became the sole purpose of my existence was to wake up and make sure that I had my alcohol and my drugs to get me through the day. I'm young. I'm 19, 20, 21,
Yeah.
22. Like the prime years of my young adult life were focused on let's make sure that we can get messed up all day and make sure we have enough for the next day. Very quickly, this happened overnight in my head.
So would you say that was your internal driving force that led you into sobriety at one point, or was it something else that kind of did it for you?
So I think that my drug use got to the point where my friends started to catch on.
Oof.
I was playing college baseball at the time. I'm using, and at our practice at the college, there was a wallet. And I found this wallet and I looked in the wallet and there's a bunch of money in this wallet. So instead of doing the right thing, I'm like, I'm just going to put this in my bag. And come to find out, one of the guys, I think, saw me do it. And it came to fruition where I got a phone call from a buddy like, hey, did you steal so and so's wallet? And I completely denied it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I didn't. And it turned into this thing where a few days later, my baseball coach called me and was like, hey, we know you took the wallet. You got to give it back. You're off the team. It was a real embarrassing moment for me. And then rumors spread like wildfire. Everybody had their suspicions that I wasn't doing great and I was kind of flunking college. And before you know it, the word was spread to my brother, to my mom and dad. And ultimately, the cat was out of the bag. I was using drugs. I'm stealing at this point. So it's like, Evan, what are you doing with your life? I ended up taking a step back from college because I couldn't keep my grades up. I stopped playing college baseball. I elected to remove myself because drugs and alcohol and partying were more important than my athleticism at this point. So right now I'm just dating a girl, working at Home Depot, no future in mind, just how can I keep partying? And I was living in my mother and father's home
Yeah.
and it got dark real quick. Once my brother found out that I was using drugs as heavily as I was, he had two beautiful daughters, my nieces, and he stopped allowing them to go to my mom and dad's house because I was living there. I really was driving a nail through the family. And that's when I knew that I had a problem. That was like the first time when my brother wouldn't allow them to go to my mother's house. That's when the reality set in. This is not only affecting me, but now it's affecting my parents. They're not able to see their grandchildren because my parents are allowing me to live here.
Yeah.
And that was a big rude awakening for me.
And so, what did that necessarily shift? What were the actions you took following that? You knew you had a problem and you knew you needed to make a change. So, what did you do with that?
So at that point, I think I went to my first rehab shortly after that. I went to a rehab in upstate New York and just, I didn't really put forth the effort. I went to this rehab because my family wanted me to get sober. It
It's
wasn't
like a get
necessary.
out of jail free
Yeah.
card.
Like, you need to go, you
You're like,
know?
okay.
I'm like, okay, I'll go. I'll give it a shot. And that was my first introduction into what recovery was, how the people talk there. But I had reservations. I had no intention of staying sober at that point. I was just going to kind of keep my family happy. It was just a real weird experience. I remember getting out, and within the first day of me getting out of that rehab, I ended up drinking. It was almost immediate. So nothing really stuck. And I think I made it a few more months before the next incident occurred. Had to sit down with my family, and they're like, Evan, you need more help. So I think one of the pivotal moments for me was I had this bright idea. I need to do a geographic change. So I ended up going to stay with a friend in Carolina for a couple months just to get out of my hometown. This person was great and offered me a place to stay, but ultimately I ended up smoking and drinking there and doing the same habits, the same behaviors. It didn't pan out. And then come to find out, the girl that I had been dating this whole time passed away while I was gone. It was just a real dark time. I remember I got in the car and I drove all the way back to New York when I found out the news, and it just gave me this hall pass in my head that justified my using. Nobody can tell me anything now. I have a great excuse to use and continue to do this behavior.
It's crazy the amount of excuses that you will create in your head to continue like down the path, even if you know you need to make a change.
That next 6 months of my drug use was the worst. When
Yeah.
I got back from that geographic move, I just went down a rabbit hole of wasn't working, wasn't going to school at this point, just anything that I could do to numb the pain and take me out of myself, I was doing, whether that was alcohol, opiates, marijuana, anything. And I burnt a lot of bridges with my family. I stole from my family. I did a lot of stuff that I regret. Granted, I've made amends and my family and I are on good terms these days. I was lost. I was a lost soul, and I didn't like looking at myself in the mirror. I didn't like who I was, and I hurt the people that cared about me the most. I put people through the ringer, you know?
So you went to rehab one more time. So you had that 6 month stint and then you went back to rehab. How old were you when you went back to the next rehab? And what was like really the internal shift that happened?
Okay, so this is pretty cool. This is God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. Is my parents and I, my mom and dad got me into this rehab. I believe I was 23, almost 24, and we're driving to drop me off at this rehab in upstate New York. The phone rings, and there was an issue with the insurance, and the bed was no longer available. So we ended up having to go to a different rehabilitation facility, changing the course of my life. Because it was at that place where I met somebody who's actually a very vital component of my recovery. I met this young lady at this place. Her name was Sam. There was a co-op. There was like a
Mm-hmm.
men's wing and a female wing. But again, I was at an all-time low. I wasn't looking for anything. I was miserable. I got dropped off at this place with a duffel bag with two white t-shirts, a pair of white Air Force Ones, sweatpants, mesh shorts, and that's it. I had no money, no phone, absolute bottom of the bottom. I think I weighed 135 pounds.
That's crazy.
I weigh 190 right now. I was just beat down, sick, and I finally had that gift of desperation. I was just beat. If I didn't get sober this time, my parents weren't going to allow me to live there anymore. I had nowhere to go. So I walk into this place, and there's this young woman there, and she's the only person there that's my age. And we just hit it off as friends. We got along. But one thing that she said to me in there, how she carried herself was, no matter what happens, I'm never going to use again because I can't. I'm going to die. And when she said I'm going to die, it really hit home. It's like, wow, this person's really terrified of using again. Her compassion to stay sober and to see this thing through voluntarily. She wasn't court ordered or anything like me. She was just there. She put herself there. It was remarkable. And I just remember thinking, wow, I really want what she has. I want that drive.
Yeah. And it's funny because when I got sober, people were like, "You're not court ordered to be here," and I was like, "No, I just like I don't want to.
I'm
I
done.
don't want to die." What do you think was the most intimidating thing about getting sober at 24?
Oh, God. Forever. You know?
Yeah.
When I remember going to my first meeting, First of all, the people that had over 10 years were absolute liars. There's no way. That's not possible. Like, you're full of BS. And then the people that stood up that said they had a year or 5 years, or that even the person that said they had 90 days could not fathom that. I know you're full of shit kind of
Yeah.
thing. Excuse my French. I didn't believe it. So when people said just one day at a time, I could comprehend that. But wow, I'm never going to be able to drink or drug again for the rest of my life. That doesn't seem fun at all. These people at these rooms were laughing and socializing and having fun without any substances. I didn't buy it.
Yeah.
It was really tough for me to realize that some of these people were genuine and that something shifted. There's got to be something else better than this life that I'm living.
Yeah.
And it's contagious. Once you hit that gift of desperation and you get to that point where you're like, all right, I'm willing to give this a shot. I told myself, I'm going to give it 30 days. Like, I'm going to give it my all for 30 days and just see how I feel. I owe it to myself. And once I made my mind up that I was going to do, that's when I guess you could say the miracle started to happen.
For me, like, I got years of information out of the 60, 90 days I spent in rehab because I was so desperate. I was like just like a sponge with everything I could get my hands on.
Everybody that knows me, that I work with, knows I don't drink, knows that I don't do drugs. All my close friends, it's who I am. I identify as somebody who's in recovery. I've been sober long enough now where I'm proud of it because you can come out the other end. It's not something you need to be ashamed of.
And it's interesting with like years of sobriety, and I'm 6 months sober now. It's become a badge of honor for me because I know that
100%.
if I don't do this loudly, I'm not going to be able to do it at all. When you talk about it, you start to normalize it and people feel more comfortable. And who knows, maybe you're talking about it one day with someone random and they identify with it and they hear it and they're like, wait, I could get sober too. How did sobriety change the way that you saw yourself?
I guess when I left that rehab and I knew that there was a different way that I wanted to start living my life, that girl was at a halfway house that I had met, and she was calling my mother's house almost every day, inviting me to meetings, and I finally started to go. And that's when I guess you could call it like the light bulb went off, that there's an easier, softer way to live. And before you know it, I was going to 3 meetings a day. I threw myself into it. And I saw these people that drove there in their own vehicles, that had nice clothes on, that I was just like, wow. And I remember talking to this guy. He had this really nice vehicle. He was just well put together. I love what he said. He had a few years of sobriety. And I remember going up to him after a meeting and just being like, man, how are you doing this? And he's like, I show up here every day and I listen to people that have more time than me and I take suggestions. And there's a statement that my buddy says, and I love it. It's, I gave up one thing and I gained everything.
Yeah.
And that rings so true to me. I put down the drugs and alcohol in my life immediately. Just slowly started to get better and better every year. It's just insane. You got to be willing to completely give yourself to this way of life.
I wasn't convinced until I went to an NA meeting while I was in rehab, and this, I call him the silver fox. He got on all fours and scurried around the floor. And I was like, what is happening right now? Because he had mentioned he had 38 years. Wow. And he had been to a meeting every day. He goes, how many hours did you spend crawling around the floor trying to find your last bit of substances?
Oh, no.
How many hours a day did you try to figure out which dealers didn't still have you blocked?
Yeah.
Or what liquor store was open during the holidays or in a normal time? What's 1 hour a day for the rest of your life back?
Wow.
And that was my shifting point because I knew I was done with drugs, but I didn't know I was done with alcohol. When I saw that man scurry across the floor like that, for some reason, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done. And I never want to do that again. What are the small moments in early sobriety that showed you that your life was moving in the right direction?
After we went to a 6:00 meeting, I think a few of us came back to my house at this point. I had a few months of sobriety and we were watching a TV show in my parents' living room. I had my first ever belly laugh in sobriety. It was contagious. I just remember laughing and I forget what we were even doing. We were just having innocent fun, watching TV, telling stories. And I just remember belly laughing. And I hadn't laughed like that, felt like in years. And I remember after that night, everybody leaves. I'm laying in bed and I just remember thinking like, man, I had so much fun. There's something to this. I just remember having that moment where I was like, I had a lot of fun tonight and I wasn't even high. So.
I think everyone remembers their first belly laugh in sobriety. Yeah. What was the hardest version of yourself to meet once you got sober?
I had this impetual fear that I was going to amount to nothing. From the earliest age, 13, 14, I remember my mom asking me, like, what do you want to do with your life? And honestly, I know this sounds weird to some people, but I really wanted to be a dad. I had this awesome childhood with my dad and having an older brother and watching him with his kids and how much fun he was having. I really wanted to be a dad. So the biggest fear for me was that I was going to eventually have a family, but ultimately use drugs and alcohol and not have my kids in my life. In early recovery, I found out that I was having my son. I remember after I found out the news, at this point, I'm driving my mother's vehicle because I still didn't have my own car yet. And I'm 6 months sober, and we just found out that we were having our son. And I'm driving home. I saw my eyes in the rearview mirror, and it's the first time that I really looked at myself in a while. It was the first prayer, I think, in sobriety that I ever said. I just said, God, if you can give me the strength to get through this sober, if you can lift this obsession, I will be the best father and dad that I can be. Just
Yeah.
give me the strength to be there for my son. And I was teary eyed, and it was a very impactful moment for me where I talked to a higher power, 6 months sober. And we ended up moving to Florida, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. But that was the moment for me because I woke up the next day and I felt different. I like almost knew everything was going to be okay. And it was like, I'm going to move to Florida and I'm going to start this family and I'm going to start my life and I'm going to be okay. And
Yeah.
that obsession was really kind of lifted. I can't explain it.
And would you say that you've worked a pretty strong recovery as far as like being within the room since your last stint at rehab? Like when
Oh,
you got out and you started going to meetings and stuff like that? Because I'm trying to point out that like you can get through hard shit in early sobriety, especially when you're working a strong recovery.
100%. So I had dropped out of college. I'm in and out of rehabs using drugs, really quick picture painted. Once I got sober, got my mind straight. I found out I was going to have my son. I'm finishing my degree. I'm going back to college. I switched my major to social work, right? I did human services, but my major was addiction counseling. I wanted to help people that had gone through what I had gone through. Moved to Florida. I ended up finishing out my bachelor's degree, believe it or not, and I started working at an outpatient rehab facility as a substance abuse counselor. So I completely switched my life around. But
And what was the time frame that you managed to get that done?
I was pretty good in college up until I flunked, so I only had like a full year to finish.
Yeah.
So I really made it a full-time effort and it took me about a year to get everything squared away.
It's crazy when you make that switch, how quickly things can
I was
shift.
determined. I was like, let's go.
And it's almost like the bad is almost heightened, but it will never be as bad as like when I hit my rock bottoms. I have bad emotions, but I can handle them now. In the greater scheme of things, are so much more good. And I'm no longer focusing on like the victimhood or like the bad of things.
Sure.
I'm trying to find the positive in every little thing.
I'm probably one of the most positive people you'll ever meet, and it's almost overbearing to some of my friends. But my mom instilled that in me. Like my mom has always looked like the glass is half full, it's not half empty. There's the worst thing could happen to you, and there's some beautiful lesson in it. So I've kind of forced myself in sobriety to be overly positive because I'm a true believer that if you're overly positive about stuff and try to find the good, that your brain will rewire itself. That's what I try to do in sobriety, at least. Just have a positive mindset always.
Yeah. And then with the positivity, how has sobriety changed the way that you communicate with those around you?
I'm pretty good at setting boundaries.
Were
And
you always good at setting
no,
boundaries?
absolutely not. When you go through the 12 steps and you're working with a mentor and you make a list of character defects, you write down on paper the things that trigger you, the things that you do that are like, eesh. So you start to identify with those. And very quickly in sobriety, I realized that I was doing a lot of things wrong, how I handled certain emotions. In working with another man, another mentor that had over 30 years of continuous sobriety. So it's somebody that really taught me a lot.
I want to continue what you just spoke on is like how many things come up, how many character defects come up.
Okay.
How did you go about like breaking those down?
So I think for me, putting pen to paper helped. When I sat down with my sponsor, really going through and writing down pen to paper, visually seeing these character defects that I had, it really brought them to the surface. I had a rude awakening, realizing that I was egotistical. I was a narcissist half the time. Selfishness, self-centeredness. When I was using, as long as I got what I wanted, I was good. I
Yeah.
didn't care about you. You were just in the way of me getting what I wanted. And that's the truth.
No, it's very
it's the
accurate.
dark, sinister truth of alcoholism and addiction. Those were behaviors that I had to correct. So in sobriety, identifying that, wow, I am not a decent human being. I need to correct this. This is years of behavior you have to correct. And it's overwhelming, but it's a one day at a time thing. Every day that I woke up and turned my will and my life over and just said, look, I'm going to get through the today. I'm not going to lie, cheat, steal. I'm going to try my hardest to be the best person I can be. And when I'm wrong, I'm going to admit it and I'm going to correct it. I started abiding by those principles. And very quickly, my life started to get better. And the company that I kept, if you hang out in a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. The people that I surrounded myself with were good people in the program. Once I started hanging out with the right people, my life started to change for the better.
Yeah. And I feel like you're the definition of people, places, and things, which we talk about in recovery too.
Thank you.
It's really hard to get sober, remaining in the same environment around the same people and doing the same things. And sometimes, in order to get sober, you have to be willing to scrap the entire board.
Yeah.
But in order to make that change, it is terrifying, but you do have to be willing to cut people off and walk away from situations.
Sure. And one thing that you said that's great is think about, for you, think about the people that you used to use with or get high with or drink with, right? How many of them check in with you now? How are you doing?
No,
Probably none.
none of them talk to me.
I get realistically probably 5 to 10 phone calls a day from different genuine friends. They usually just call to check in, like, hey man, how you doing today?
It's crazy. How has sobriety changed the way that you have relationships with people?
Oh,
But
God.
that's the perfect answer.
Yeah, I'm a father today. Both my kids have a father in their life that is sober and present, which is a miracle. My kids know me every day sober. That's awesome. I have a wife. I'm a husband today. I'm a friend. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I try really hard to show up when people need me. Sobriety has taught, these rooms have taught me how to be a man. My life has continuously got better every single day, month, year that I've been sober. There were so many bridges I burned, and my amends list was massive. There was a lot of people that I had to reach out to and apologize. And what can I do to fix this relationship? I'm really sorry for the way I treated you, but how can we get past this? Is there anything I can do? There's a lot of work
Profound.
that's needed to be
Yeah.
done. Once you get sober and you realize the wake of devastation you
I
created.
just realized like I had no substance to myself. Like there was nothing about me that was special. There was nothing about me that I did authentically for me. Like I did everything because I wanted everyone to like me, and I would manipulate people along the way. And so it's like I had to completely start over with figuring out who I am from the beginning.
That's funny though. In sobriety, one of my best friends to this day, literally do anything for this guy. I met him in the room. We became close, but the first impression, he's like, yeah, man, I heard you speak. Matter of fact, before you spoke at a meeting, I saw you in the meeting. You're this tattooed guy. You had Nikes on. I thought you were a douchebag. I was like, damn, what the hell, man? And he's like, not until you spoke, until I talked to you, I realized you're a great guy. You're a genuine person. But my first impression, I was like, I don't know about this guy. I'm like, thank you.
Did you ever have an almost like an imposter syndrome of who you thought you were while you were in addiction?
The people that know me here know me as Sober Evan,
Yeah.
right? So where it gets tricky is my old friends, my old crew from New York, all the people that I had to make amends to and whatnot. They might see me now on social media and see my family and the life that I've built, which is pretty remarkable, and be like, oh, correlate that to old Evan, the
Yeah.
using, drunk, alcoholic, drug addict Evan. So at some point, you have to let go and let God.
There's only so much you can do.
There's only so much you can do. So, I mean, there's been a few times where I went home for Christmas and I crossed paths with people. That's called like living amends. There's certain people that you might not want to reach out to because it might harm them,
Mm-hmm.
harm yourself. And 99% of my interactions with people from my past have been great because they see the me now.
As much as I had thought I had burnt a lot of bridges, I didn't realize how much grace I was going to get from my loved ones when I got sober and actually started to make the change and follow through on my word.
Yeah.
How many people was like, they're never going to talk to me again, who actually are a huge part of my life now.
Yeah.
And how many bridges I was able to repair because I got sober and I put in the work.
One of the amends that I made was to my Uncle Mike. I had to go to his house and I had to sit down with him and I had to talk to him. And I remember being terrified, Sydney. Didn't want to do it because I didn't know how he was going to react. And after I knocked on his door and sat down with him, put my cards on the table, you know what he said to me? He's like, Evan, I'm just so glad that you're sober. I just want you to be okay. I don't care about any of that. I'm so proud of you. Just keep doing what you're doing. And it was like,
Breath of
Like,
fresh air.
if I could do this amends and it go that good, like I can do all of them. But it
Yeah.
was contagious. People genuinely want to forgive loved ones. So especially if you're putting in the work and you're making an effort and they can see it, I think that's a lot of times why people won't get sober. They feel like
Yeah.
there's this teeter totter, and if they do all this bad stuff, they're damned to hell. And getting back out of that hole and teetering it the other way is nearly impossible. At least that's how I felt. And then once you start making the effort and you start doing the next right thing, and before you know it, days turn into weeks, turn into months, and you have 6 months sober and you're a contributing member of society again, going to meetings, eventually the people that you're scared of making those amends to or whatnot will see it in your actions. They're like, wow, this person's actually putting forth effort. They're changing their life.
Yeah.
That's the miracle of giving up drinking and drugging is people's lives do change.
Yeah. Emotions did you not have access to well in addiction that you feel like you now have access to in sobriety?
Trust,
Yeah.
100%. Trust and love, honestly. It's really hard for me to trust people because when you're in that world of using alcoholism, drug addiction, who can you trust?
No one.
Your drug dealer? No, what
No,
I mean?
not even them.
So,
They
I
might
mean,
block you.
yeah, relearning how to trust people and set healthy boundaries and learn that you're going to receive love from your friends, your significant other, and it's genuine. Sometimes when you get sober, people start being nice to you, and you're like, what's your angle? When I was in early sobriety, somebody, hey, I'll pick you up and bring you to the meeting. That's fine. It's like, why are you being nice? You have to learn how to trust people. Sometimes people are just good people trying to genuinely lend a hand. And that's something it's a tough pill to swallow in the beginning. It's like, wow, I was a real shitty person because this guy's really nice to me. I'm a complete stranger. I wouldn't be this nice to my own kin.
Yeah. If you could talk to you in active addiction, what would you say to him as the man that you are now?
I think if I could go back to 19, 20-year-old me, God, just a kid, I'm 34 now. If I could go back and have a conversation with myself and just have a couple minutes, I would just tell myself, if you give this a shot, you're going to look back on your life and be so grateful that you did. If I could go back in time and with my phone and show younger me the stuff that I do today, like I have so many hobbies. I have a wicked cool 1993 Toyota Land Cruiser, and I have a group of Toyota guys. We take trips, we go camping, we do all types of cool, fun stuff. I have a huge disc golf group. We call ourselves the Gooder Boys. Shout out the Gooder Boys. There's 19 of us in that group chat. I play disc golf a few times a week. I'm able to go fishing with my son. I'm able to do Boy Scouts with my son today. I take my daughter to dance class. There's all this crazy fun stuff. So if I could go back in time and show my younger self, you're going to be a dad. You're going to have so many people that care about you in your life actively. You're going to have all these hobbies. Check this out. All you need to do is stop this one thing. That's it.
Do you think you would have listened?
I would like to say yes, but at the peak of my addiction, I would have been like, you're full of BS.
Yeah, you're lying to me, right?
If there's anybody watching this that's really struggling with early sobriety or wanting to teeter on and make that decision, go to a meeting and just have an open mind. Listen to some of these people. Hearing a couple people speak in a meeting and finding one person that you relate with. When you hear your story and somebody else in a meeting, it's a profound moment where you're like, I need to go talk to them. Just do it. Could I have your phone number? Could you teach me? If you have the courage to do that, you're ready to make a change in your life. And your life could be just completely different 6 months time from now.
And what do you want your kids to know as they get older about your story and where you came from?
Well,
and are you going to share any of this
oh
with them
yeah,
eventually?
I'm an open book. That's one thing that I love about this program. I don't have skeletons in my closet.
Yeah.
Like I'm an open book.
You remove like all the, for
Yeah.
me, it was like the guilt and shame that left with
Yeah.
it as I started to talk about my story more.
So my son, who's 9, this is crazy. He's come to meetings in his stroller, wheel him in. He's been in the rooms this whole time.
Yeah.
He's part of my life, and this is part of our routine. Like he said, Dad, it's Friday. Are we going to the meeting? Like,
do you think you're going to let your kids drink when they're older?
You're not drinking in my house. No, he asked me the other day, I swear to God, on everything I love. He's like, Dad, how old do you have to be to drink? Might have been the same conversation. And I said, 21. You have to be 21 to drink. And he goes, do people drink for fun? So I'm like, people drink all the time. Like, he's got grandfathers that'll have a couple beers, watch a football game, be done. And so I told my son, when you're old enough, when you're 21, you're allowed to have alcoholic beverages. That is your right as an American man. You can totally go and watch a football game and have a couple beers with your friends. I said, that is your decision. I said, the issue happens when you realize you can't stop.
I mean, worst case, if something were to happen, at least he'll have a kick-ass support system.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He'll know where to go.
He's got a lot of love. After I was an addiction counselor for a couple of years doing that, I got recruited to go work for a branch of essentially DCF, Department of Children and Families. And what you would do is there was children that would get removed from their parents, right? And my whole purpose as a case management supervisor is I overviewed a team that we would try to reunify these children with their families. And sometimes that wouldn't be the case. And sometimes these kids would have to be adopted. And it was a very rewarding job, but it was a real high stress job. And not once through that entire career. I worked there for 5 years before I got into real estate. And never once did I want to drink over it. Well, that's a blessing.
Yeah, that's a really intense,
It was
hard job.
It was. And anybody that still does that line of work, they know that your phone rings all hours of the night. I was on call and I'm sitting at the dinner table with my wife and my kids, and my work phone's going off. And my wife was like, Evan, this isn't what I signed up for. You're working too much. This job is killing you. It's taking you away from the kids. Like, you need to do something else. She's like, why don't you call so-and-so, this guy that sold us a house? And I was like, yeah. And come to find out, I called this man and explained my situation. And he's like, why don't you come work for me? I'll mentor you and you can work on my team and learn real estate. It might be a really good switch for you at this point in your career. Just leave on good terms. So if you don't like it, you can go back. And that's what I did. I put in a 4-week notice at my job and I cashed out my 401k and did this huge, weird career switch. Like, I went to school to do this.
That's like complete opposite.
Yeah, like I have school loans and I went and I finished my bachelor's degree and I'm like working in this career. And for me to be able to have the confidence in myself and have a support system, my wife who supported me enough to be like, you should do this. Like, so making that jump into real estate, these past years have been incredible. And I've been able to work with more alcoholics. I've had more time.
Yeah.
I'm busy, but I've had more time to focus on my kids and focus on me a little bit, not being on call 24/7, dealing with a caseload. This program has blessed me with many miracles.
And now you get to actually hold a good job and build a career because you are sober. What would you say to someone who is young, who is afraid that getting sober will make their life smaller?
And smaller, you mean?
Not as fun.
Not as fun. Okay. My own experience with this is that I've had more fun in sobriety than I ever had using drugs and alcohol. So my own experience is when you party and you drink a drug, what does your brain go to? It highlights the nice little blip of one night that you had a great time. Like, it fantasizes and romanticizes that one night. It doesn't talk about all of the hangovers, all of the times you were broke or you woke up being like, what did I do last night? Who did I sleep with last night? Like, all this horrible, sinister stuff. Your brain romanticizes like, oh, it was so fun. We had this drunk, awesome night. So for me, sobriety, I'm able to remember everything that I do. I belly laugh way more.
Yeah.
And I'm able to do all these fun things with people that are like-minded. When I was drinking and drugging, 80% of the time I was using towards the end alone in my room behind closed doors just to numb myself. There's no fun in that.
I think that some people might argue that just staying in addiction is easier. And to some extent, yes, it is easier. But I would say, like, how free do you want to be? And it's like turning into, I did a bunch of work and I'm still doing work every single day, but it has progressively turned into a softer life every single day because of the hard work that I'm willing to put in, especially on the front end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's overwhelming at first. But I think the more you just keep coming back, the less overwhelming it gets and the easier it gets as you start going down that path. I don't even know how people function without doing the 12 steps. Like, I have done the 12 steps and I'm sitting here like, how do people live their life not having done this work? Because it really is life changing. Because at the end of the day, you can only control your actions, how you respond, and what you do. And when you finally stop trying to control everyone around you, life gets so much better. So much better.
It's a lot of self-reflection and self-improvement. It's trying to become the best human being, the best version of you that you can be.
Yeah.
And when you're wrong, you promptly admit it. It's an admirable way to live.
And it's funny because I said this in a meeting once. When you work the 12 steps, you realize it has nothing to do with alcohol. Literally nothing. It has to do with I don't know how to handle my affairs. I don't know how to handle my life. I don't know how to handle my own actions. I don't know how to uh, have consequences for the things that I do and how I interact with people. 8 years of sobriety, that's huge.
Coming up on 8, full sobriety.
It's
Yeah.
so exciting.
My life is incredible today. I have so many blessings. My wife's a nurse. My son's going into, he'll be in 5th grade next year. My daughter is going in, she's starting VPK. And my career's going really well. I have a life unparalleled and unmatched today. I sell real estate in Florida, so I'm able to make my own hours and my own schedule. And it's just, I feel like for the first time in my life, my higher power, God, had this plan, right? This is what you're supposed to do.
You went from living in your parents' house to like having a successful career, having a family, and being a pillar in your community.
Thank you.
And that's incredible.
Taken almost
That's
a decade.
crazy.
It's not, it didn't happen
It
overnight.
didn't happen overnight. Rome was not built in a day, but still,
true.
like, there's so many people who would get to that point and just give up and just keep going down that path. And you made a shift. And it's crazy to see how in that span you could have still been using. Your life has completely done a 180.
If anybody walked into one of these rooms and stayed long enough to know some of these people that are regulars, the miracles that quitting drinking and drugging and getting a support group like this, the miracles are everywhere. I have so many people that I look up to. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a very G-rated version of my story, right? I'm trying to keep this kid friendly. My addiction brought me to a very dark place, and I am not happy with the person that I was back then. What I can tell you is I'm comfortable in my own skin today. I'm really proud of the man that I am today. There is hope for you. If you reach that point in your life where you want that gift of desperation, where you're just rendered or surrendered or something, like you're sick and tired of being sick and tired and you're beat down. I am living proof that if you give up that one thing, you can gain everything. I have a life that is unparalleled to anything I could have ever imagined. And it's all because I made a stand and I said, I'm done. I owe it to myself to give myself this chance. It was hard. I mean,
Yeah.
Changing at people, places, things is the hardest thing in my entire life that I had to do. However, it was the most rewarding, especially now, almost 8 years later, 10 years later, where it's like I could just look back. Please give yourself an opportunity.
Are there any outlets that you feel like have helped you not only in sobriety, but also with handling your emotions? Because as we know, getting sober, it's a full on when it comes to your emotions coming back.
Yeah, 100%. My head gets really loud sometimes, as yours probably does, as everyone's probably does. I fell in love with music again in sobriety, amongst other things like food, because who eats when you're using? I go to the gym pretty much every day of the week, Monday through Friday. I get my son on the school bus and I start my day that way. I have for a long time. And it's helped me significantly. I do a bunch of other stuff too. I love disc golf. Love tattoos too. And most people are probably like, why does that guy have a black sleeve on? But I have hobbies today that I'm grateful for.
I think finding your hobbies too in sobriety is so much fun.
This is hilarious. When I was drinking and drugging in my drug use, I sold all my old Pokemon cards. And I had a lot, like big money. I get to relive it now with my son because my son's super into it. So we're super into Pokemon together.
You deserve to have
Sure.
good in your life. And that was a scary at the beginning of sobriety.
I agree. You do deserve good things. And being able to be comfortable with that it's a big step for a lot of people.
Because when we recover loudly, we stop people from dying quietly. Someone told me that once and I love that. For so long, I thought I had to do it on my own. And like, I couldn't set boundaries and I couldn't reach out and ask for help. But like, as soon as you open the door, like when you don't allow someone to help you, you're depriving someone of the opportunity to be of service.
So the program has taught me that. I'm going to just do the best I can in the moment, do the next right thing, try not to harm anybody. And if I do, quickly apologize for it. Hey man, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, and just live my life day to day and not drink. As long as I don't drink, as long as you don't drink, drug.
As long as we don't pick up that first drink, we should be chilling.
Everything's going to be
It's
okay.
all going to work out the way it should.
My higher power's got my back. It really works out.
Thank you, Evan, so much for coming on today. It has been an absolute blast getting to hear your story and how much you've changed in the years of sobriety.
This has been an honor. I'm really grateful that you invited me out, and to anybody that's watching, hopefully you put my link or whatnot if anybody wants to reach out. Absolutely. I'm here if anybody wants to talk. I will make myself available for anybody struggling.
Thank you guys so much for coming to this week's episode of Young and Sober. There is so many more episodes, so much more content, and so many interviews coming. I am so excited for what's to come and what you guys get to see. As always, this podcast is for the sober confident, the sober curious, and the sober ish. I am so happy you're here, and I love you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one.
You got
Bye.
this.